Hi, welcome to Filler. This is Joe in the editor booth right now. This is part 2 of Steve's and my favorite media from 2024. Part 1 is available wherever podcasts are available right now. Enjoy the show. We hope you find something you like. So what's your number 5?
So what's number 5? We just, for those of you listening, we haven't moved since we said goodbye from the last episode. We're just doing it all at once. So yeah, number 5. It's another video game for me. It's Astrobot.
I wanted to play that so bad.
You're gonna love it. Do you like platformers?
They're my favorite genre. Yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah.
They're usually not mine because I have like poor like depth perception and I like freak out, so I'm like anxious when I try to like hop properly,
Sure.
and, like move properly. But this game is so much fun. There's almost nothing I can say about it because it's just so fun. It's like it takes all the best ideas of like Mario Galaxy and Banjo-Kazooie and like different kinds of platformers that give you a reason to explore. Like, I love Mario Odyssey, but I like this tighter level design where you're looking for things in a pretty contained area, like actual levels. And it's got so much PlayStation fan service in a way that actually works because you have to find like 300 bots because you like crash and you got to find all your friends and stuff. So it's kind of like finding the Waddle Dees in Kirby and the Forgotten Land or all the Toads in Super Princess Peach.
Or the Riddler trophies in Batman.
See, it's not like the Riddler trophies because it's good. No, because all the half the bots, I think, are special bots where they're dressed as characters from different PlayStation IPs and sometimes just other video games that like either Sony once had exclusive and don't anymore, or they never did. They're just like have been prevalent on PlayStation in some way. So some of them you find in levels that are built around the game. So you find all the God of War characters in a God of War level.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's great because then you're like, who am I going to find next? Because obviously there's Kratos and Atreus, and then it's like, Angrboda? Really?
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then you're going through a level that's like, oh, it's a bunch of smiley mushrooms that are dancing. That's cool. And then it's Joel from The Last of Us. And it's like, that's fun. You never know who you're going to find. Like, I was on a casino planet, and then I found Joker from Persona 5. It's like, okay, I get it. Nice. And I love that. And then some that you find just in the hub world by having enough bots with you to unlock going to a new place. And then all of a sudden it's like Amaterasu from Okami or Spyro the Dragon. Like, you never know who it's going to be.
That's cool.
And it's on top of it just being a fun game to play, it gives you more reason to explore and find everything. And when you get all the puzzle pieces, then you can get like different shops in your hub world to paint your controller ship different colors or put on different costumes, or you're dressed as the other bots. It's so good. And my one problem with it is that some of it's actually too hard for me, but that's a skill issue. I know that's just me. I went through and 100%ed it, or so I thought, because I got all the puzzle pieces and all 300 bots just to find out there's actually one more challenge, and it is impossible. It's just this one level with one more bot at the end. And the fact that I couldn't do it and had to just look up who it is, and it's just like the onion guy from Parappa the Rapper. I'm like, all right, now this is just going to be hanging over my head for the rest of my life.
The onion guy from Parappa the Rapper.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Who I didn't even know existed before because I've never fucking played Parappa the Rapper.
Yeah.
No, Astrobot's great, but I almost had a nervous breakdown playing that last level, so that's why it's only number 5 for me.
That's fair. I really liked Astro's Playroom. That was the demo. Yeah.
The built-in tech demo game.
That was a game. That was a really good demo game.
Mm-hmm.
They did fan service and Easter eggs right.
Yep.
there as a just for PlayStation. So I'm glad that they made it into a full game.
And it's still fan servicey and just so worth it.
Yeah, I think was that the full like $70 for that game?
60.
60. Okay,
It's I would have paid 70, but it is 60. Yeah.
Gotcha. I think that's going to be one of the games like I wait for PlayStation Plus to come through, but when it comes through, I'm going to play it immediately.
Yes.
Nice.
Definitely worthy of Game of the Year, I'd say. It was a surprise, but it was a welcome one, I thought.
I think it's good to have a surprise like that every now and then when we're getting like Elden Rings and Cyberpunks that are just like I try playing those and I get so overwhelmed so quickly. So it's nice to see like, oh no, this is just like an old-fashioned video game, for lack of better words, but it's just done so well that you just want to play it and have fun.
Yeah.
Nice. My number 5 is not a video game. We're moving back to books. It is, and I hope I'm pronouncing everything correctly. I think I am because I really practiced a lot for this novel and this author's name. It's Mornings in Janine by Susan Abulhua. I think that's how you say her name. It is a novel that came out, I think a little over 10 years ago, about a girl growing up in Palestine in the 20th century. And so it starts in the 40s and it works its way up through for listeners at home, Steve is making a nodding, knowing face.
Yep.
And for context, this is when the conflict between Israel and Palestine really starts. And the author herself is Palestinian. And so there is this is definitely one of those like semi-autofiction novels where parts of it you can see where she's taking her own experiences and then she's also drawing on maybe her friends and family and putting it all together into Amal's experience, the narrator. But the reason I found it was because I used to teach the Kite Runner in 10th grade English.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this.
And I I taught it because I felt like my eyes were really opened when I read The Kite Runner. I think in 10th grade when I was in high school.
I think same, yeah.
Which is a different time. That was like 2009, I think. But it did a lot for me in terms of a lot of the prevalent Islamophobia that was going on in New York at the time.
Yeah.
Because we were still very much so like war on terror, jingoistic, patriotic.
Yeah.
Right. And so I really appreciated how my teacher then challenged us. I think her name was Mrs. Kennedy Orlando. But yeah, I really loved The Kite Runner. It was one of the first novels that was very literary and adult and challenged me as a reader and made me love reading all the more because it made you empathize outside of your element and who you are. So I'd been teaching The Kite Runner for several years and I got tired of teaching it just because you get tired of teaching the same thing. It's not that the kids stopped liking it. They did. But I wanted to update my curriculum to reflect the world. And I think we were too far out from things in Afghanistan and Iraq for the Kite Runner to hit as hard as it could or as hard as I wanted it to in class. So I did a ton of research. I read like a lot really, really quickly. And I found Mornings in Janine. And I was like very, very lucky to be encouraged by colleagues, by a principal who's like a proponent of banned books, even though this isn't a banned book. I can imagine it would be a banned book. But ultimately what I really, really loved about it was that despite the message being clear, despite you understanding what the bias is of the author, their viewpoint, all that stuff, it is very effective in showing how human the conflict is and how human how it's based on hurt and pain at its very, very core. And it very, very much so just starts with people not feeling like there's a place for them in the world. And that is what leads to this conflict between Israel and Palestine, because there is this hurt group of people that then feel empowered to go not be hurt anymore at any cost.
Yeah.
And
that cause causing another group to be hurt
causes exactly
with nowhere to go.
Right. And hence why the conflict is so difficult and hard to talk about, because people get so attached to it, and understandably so. Being a teacher, one of the major things, I don't think anyone's ever said this to me out loud, but it comes very naturally with the profession. You don't want to influence your kids' politics. You don't want to influence the way they think. And so I've never told them anything about my personal opinions. I'm trying to even refrain sharing personal opinions right now, just in case someone looks me up on Google and they hear this and they go, "Oh, I knew Joe felt this way about that." And it's like, nope, you could figure it out if you're listening, but it's not. I'm not there to dictate. I'm there to ask questions.
Yes.
And I think this book makes readers ask questions, or makes readers ask the right questions, get the answers, and then look at it from a different angle, where you look at everyone in a very humanely way.
Do you think it does that better than The Kite Runner?
Yes. Yeah, because there is, in The Kite Runner, I think there is a clear villain and a clear antagonist, and I don't think there isn't one person that is an antagonist or one villain in the book. I don't think I would even say that there is a villain in the book. No one is truly evil. You can make an argument for evil intentions, and I don't think listeners can hear me smiling because I'm really trying to dance around a lot right now. But you can make an argument for evil intentions based on the context of parties that get involved in the conflict.
Yes.
And that's for people to figure out, and that's for people to make their own judgments on, and their own. That's for people to make their own decisions about it.
That sounds like what a good book should do. Makes you question and come to your own conclusions, and it generates discussion to see what everyone else is getting out of it too.
Right. And I think that's why.
Good pick for your class.
It was really difficult. It was very. I got to say, like, I think I even went to ChatGPT for help at one point, and I just put this whole big prompt in, saying this is what I'm trying to do and this is what I'm trying to avoid. Give me a list of books. Yeah, and it was like, we can have a whole conversation about AI another day, but it was very, very helpful in my research, because I was asking so many people for help, and everyone was just like, yeah, The Kite Runner, he wrote other books. And I was like, I don't want a Hosseini book. Like, I don't want that conflict. I want to talk about Israel and Palestine, or even if there was like a speculative fiction take on that, we could have done that. It just worked out well that it was very, very relevant to what's going on. But yeah, everyone should read that. And everyone should read her other book too, Against the Loveless World. That was my first pick that I was going to read, and I didn't finish it because that one is decidedly too adult.
Okay.
That ventures more into intersectional feminism and sex workers and whatnot. And it's a great, beautiful novel. Not something I'm really trying to get at in 10th grade now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's only number 5.
Cool. Man, you keep giving me good things to check out. So what are we on, number 4?
We're at number 4, and it looks like we're still in school.
We're still in school.
Based on your number 4 pick. Your honorable mention.
Oh, my God. That's, yeah. Anyway. So I watch a lot of reality TV, and more than I thought I did. I don't watch The Bachelor anymore, but I used to. And I like a lot of reality competition shows like Ink Master and Drag Race. I used to watch a lot of Survivor, and I really want to get back into that. But there are 2 scripted series that I really, really love from this past year. The honorable mention is Abbott Elementary because it's been going on for a few years. It's on season 4 now. And it is just one of the funniest, sweetest shows that I've heard like 1 or 2 people say they think it's too preachy. I don't get that at all. I think it has a message. It's not the Seinfeld approach of no hugging, no learning. It is very much like there is a message to this because it's about important things. It's about like underfunded inner city schools in Philadelphia and you're reflecting a lot of problems with the education situation in our country. Like it just education not being valued and not giving kids the place to succeed. But it's handled in such a funny and sweet way because the teachers care so much. And yeah, they're wacky and eccentric and have their different approaches to teaching and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it all comes together in a very human, heartfelt way. that's also hilarious. Like the jokes are great. The modernity of it is great. They have Zach Fox as a recurring character, and you can tell just half the shit he says is just made up on the spot.
What's his role? What does he play?
He's Janine's ex-boyfriend that is like a schmuck who like is trying to make it as a rapper, and then
Oh man, that's great. I thought you were gonna say something like he's a sub teacher.
no,
That's even better though.
But where he goes is amazing because he goes from being like this failed rapper who's like mooching off of her for their whole 10-year relationship to finding his only way of like making it as a rapper is basically for working for Dare as a rapper. So he's got these like trap beats and he's like, if someone gives you drugs, punch them in the face. Like, and then he like starts dating a parent, so he becomes a stepdad, and now he's like involved in the PTA. Like they keep finding ways to bring him back, and it works every time. But there's also will they won't they between the main girl and the tall handsome teacher and Janine and Gregory, and but what makes it really work and makes it not just like a cute message of the week story is that they just did a crossover episode with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And that is the ultimate no hugging, no learning show. Yep. So to see those two casts together is amazing.
I heard that Charlie learns how to read finally.
He does. And it's really sweet. It's awesome. A good plot line, and watching him try to get away with not reading is great because it always is. So you could tell just the writers from both shows knew exactly what they were doing. Like Dennis isn't even in it for most of it because he can't be in a school.
Like, that sucks, but that tracks.
It's like they know what they're doing, and it sucks to not have him. But every time you see him like hiding from the camera because it's like a found footage show, like or a mockumentary style, like The Office or something. It's just seeing him hiding behind something. It's just great. And then there's going to be a crossover where they go on It's Always Sunny.
I was hoping they'd go to the bar. They got to go to Patty's, right?
Yeah. And Janine, the creator, Quinta Brunson said, like, okay, Abbott fans, like young Abbott fans, don't watch the Always Sunny episode. Like, nice. Don't, like, please don't do that. So that's going to be great to see them.
It's going to be their non-canon canon episode.
Yes. Yeah. So with all that said, the other show, I guess that really is the reason. It's just because it's been long running for a long time. So that's not why why it's not my pick for 2024. And The Penguin is because it was just like a one season. Probably. I don't think we're getting another season. I don't think it needs it. No. At first I was a little worried that this was just going to be The Sopranos in Gotham. But something about it hooked me right away. With it being like set 2 weeks after the events of the Batman. Yeah. Matt Reeves is directly involved, and I think the Batman is the best Batman movie, so like it's easy to just be on board for it. Colin Farrell was also amazing as the Penguin in the Batman. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. I hear it's good. Not only is he great and one of the best like not even anti-heroes, just like evil protagonists ever. Kristen Milioti is just unparalleled.
To me, she's the star of the show.
She is. Yeah. Like, they paced everything well in revealing her backstory, creating some intrigue around that, setting up her motivation for what she's going to do next. All the double-crossing between her and Oz and Vic and all of that, like all the. You finished it, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. There's so much to keep up with, and there's so much lore, and they made Gotham feel like real. I mean, it's just New York again, like it was in the Batman, but it feels real because it's grounded in something, and. Once you get past the initial comparisons of The Sopranos, it really becomes its own thing. And ends in a way that not only sets up Oz as a much better version of a villain than he was as like just kind of a jokey henchman guy in the movie, but it's an arc I don't think I've ever seen before, not even in like Breaking Bad. Like it leaves him in a place where like you can only really just marvel at how depraved he is. And I don't know, it seems like one of those stories that might get misconstrued by people who don't get the point.
I think so.
Like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad. But if you take it for what it is and just see the descent of a bad person to become worse, and especially when you know how far back into his life that goes, it really, I don't know. It's just it's a master of masterclass of suspense and character writing that just makes me more and more excited for Batman Part 2 and anything else that Matt Reeves' version of Gotham will do.
Yeah. I think they really nailed the Penguin because they went the additive route of storytelling instead of trying to skirt around things or retcon things. They deepened Oz.
Yes.
And I guess that was like ultimately like that's what you had to do on a show named The Penguin, but it was the right thing to do for his Batman saga, right? I think that's what he's calling it, or Batman Crime Saga, whatever the name is. Just because when you go to the Batman Part 2, Oz will be at the top of his game.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you didn't watch The Penguin, you could kind of roll with it. I'm sure that Reeves will catch us up in the movie to show how the Penguin got there. Maybe it'll be like a TV thing, something in the newspaper, something from Bruce, whatever it's going to be. They'll get it. But you get to see his backstory. So it's kind of like, you might like this callback. This might be like people in the future might watch the Batman 2, not having seen the Penguin, and they're going to have their Sonic the Hedgehog 3 moment where they want to go back and watch the Penguin.
Watch the Knuckles show?
Right, they're going to want to, but it's a good show.
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, it feels like that. In a good way, in a complimentary way. Yeah, that was a great show. That's very rewatchable. My partner is not a superhero person, so I watched it, nor is she a crime, like a gang kind of media person. We watched The Sopranos, and we both really liked it. But I tore through the Penguin, and I got to the episode with Sophia's backstory and her table meeting, and Laura was like really into it. So now she's gone back to watching it, and now I'm sitting there watching in the background, being like, "Is this how we get into Batman?"
Kind of the same thing happened with my girlfriend and I, because she got me into The Sopranos, and then I was like, "We gotta watch the Penguin. We gotta watch the Penguin. We gotta watch the Penguin." It's just The Sopranos. He's from Jersey. We gotta do it.
It's the same thing.
And she was like, "Fine." And then we got to that Sophia episode, and she was like, "I need a minute before we keep going." That was a lot.
It really elevates it. And like you said, Kristen Milioti just killed it. And choosing to make the Penguin a closet Sophia Falcone story. Ooh, immaculate decision. Because no one would have watched something named Sophia Falcone, even if it was set in the Batman.
Even if it was called The Hangman.
Right, exactly. Because everyone would be like, who is that? But the way they incorporate her, and she becomes the second lead in that.
Yes.
And there's points where I'm going to speak for myself. I wanted her to be the one who comes out on top.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of unequivocal in who you're supposed to root for, even though like you're rooting for Oz.
Because you can see her humanity where he rejects it.
Yes. Purposefully, intentionally.
Yeah.
Like time and time again, he gets the opportunities to, and he says no. Out of his selfishness, his greed, his brokenness, whatever it might be. But she's vigilante side of murderer in the way that he is just straight up broken side of murderer.
Yes.
Which, they just nailed that. That's a great show.
Yeah.
It's a good show. Okay. I think my number 4 is going to be a quick one.
Okay.
just because of the element of what I chose to make it. I chose the entire genre of shoegaze for number 4. I never really got into shoegaze. Not that I didn't like it. I definitely tried so many orients of pedals to make my guitar sound shoegazy at home, and I can never pull it off. I think I might have finally gotten it now, thanks to your JC pre-pedal.
Oh, yeah.
Because now I'm throwing a drive into like a reverberation machine pedal from Death by Audio, which has like a gain unit in it. So it's gain into gain plus reverb into a Roland Jazz Chorus.
Yeah.
Which like I don't think I could get shoegazier than that. And it's hitting. But yeah, I really got into Trauma Ray, which wrote really catchy shoegaze stuff this year. I really got into Velvet, which is a New York band who I hope we get to see soon, because that would be a fun show to check out. Hope maybe even get to play with them once. And then I got into this band called Whir, who were canceled for transphobic tweets from 2014, 2015, something like that. I forget what the band was that they were coming at, but they were rude. They were messed up. There were just derogatory terms in the tweet. They were talking about some band that was queercore, that was like trans punk, that kind of thing. I don't quote me. I think it was like Gloss. I think that was the band.
Okay.
And it was very distasteful. It was rude. It was hurtful. It was harmful. I think this is in 2014 or 2015, and the band member or the main guy of Whir, maybe the guy who makes Whir, went on record saying that it was no one in the band that tweeted it, that it was a person attached to the band who tweeted it.
Huh.
And they'd been spoken to, and they had lost privileges, and they'd been excised from the circle, so to speak. It was just a very odd handling of like a semi-cancellation by the scene, to the point where it's like, were they making it up on the spot to kind of save face? It was just shady.
That sounds it.
Yeah, and at that time I wasn't into shoegaze, so I was like, I don't care who Whir is. Like it's stupid. Like why are you being anti-trans? Like, let people be people. Like, you know, like it was dumb all around. But I didn't get into them. This year I got into them because I think they released an album on Christmas called Raw Blue, and it was being talked about in circles, and I saw that they were being discussed again, and I only really knew them through their semi-cancellation.
Okay.
And so a writer I really like, Eli Ennis, did an interview with, I think it's the guitarist, where the guy apologized for it. And the whole thing about Ennis's article and profile on him was not necessarily, is it okay to listen to them? Is it okay to empower them? Were they ever really released from the scene? Was one of the questions he was asking. He came at it from the angle where he clearly likes shoegaze, so he engages with the genre, and I think that's where my love for it is blossoming, just because I enjoy his writing and his tone, and I appreciate his opinions. But it was fascinating to see him have such a nuanced conversation with someone who was kind of canceled. And it made me think a lot about separating the art from the artist, because I think about that constantly. Teaching, listening to music, reading, like the big article about Neil Gaiman came out today, which was only further damning. I think I got into Whir a very backwards way, to the point where I was like, I'm not really putting these people on a pedestal. I think they're just making beautiful, pretty music that I'm engaging with. And at my age, I'm like, I can very much so say, like, to people, like, you should be inclusive. You should not be anti-trans. You should not be derogatory. You shouldn't be a bigot. And I can still go and listen to something that might have been created by someone who made a stupid tweet 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like the James Gunn thing, where Disney fired him over stupid tweets that he was making jokes about, even though if you know James Gunn and you see his movies and engage with his media, he won't agree truly, genuinely, with jokes that he made years past, that he was into that kind of humor. I don't know. There's a lot that's going on there.
The Wild West of the internet from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, each of them has been a different thing. You know, and not just what you could, quote unquote, get away with, but what you thought was okay or wouldn't even think wasn't okay. Right. You know, like,
I don't know, more than
I don't
any
have more to say.
no
So, yeah.
more than any like canceling or anything like that. I don't think people should grow up online.
Yeah.
I think that's like my
Yeah.
big thing, because I definitely I've changed who I am as a person in the last 10 years, and I've been online. That's not to say I've like said anything derogatory or bigoted. I'm sure I have, and I've learned from it because like different times change and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's just I don't know, man. Like, people are flawed, and I don't think a lot of people get grace when it comes to cancellation. That's not to
Yeah.
say like I understand the point of it. Like, there are people who are depraved. There are people who are criminal, and just don't get it. And there are people who are sick who don't get it and can learn, and they don't always get the chance to. And I think that's hard to juggle. But Eli Ennis's article like hit me, or his profile hit me in a positive way, where I was like, I don't know. I can't go back and listen to Brand New because it doesn't. It hits me in a weird way.
I was gonna say Brand New is a good example because at least they inspired so many bands that sound just like them that you can kind of replace them with anybody, like a Manchester Orchestra or like All Get Out, or like someone that, like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I got into Brand New a little later that it doesn't hurt as much. But as someone whose favorite band is the 1975, to have to constantly deal with Matty Healy being the Morrissey of our time, it gets exhausting.
See,
you know?
And here's the thing about the 1975. We should have like a whole set 1975.
Oh, we
episode. I think they're uncancelable because of who he is as a person.
I think so.
And I think that's so fascinating. We got to talk about that more in depth later. But I don't think you can touch him because he knows who he is. Yeah. And he's not afraid of that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But yeah, number 4. Love shoegaze. Gonna keep listening to shoegaze in 2025. Maybe even make some shoegaze.
Hell yeah. Yeah. We should throw that into the LVP. Throw some shoegaze
that'd be
elements.
Dope. Yeah, that'd be fun.
We're starting to get into some psychier stuff.
And heavier.
Yeah,
that's shoegaze,
Yeah. Anyway, my number 3 pick is another video game. It is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I don't know how to say this succinctly because my love for Final Fantasy VII is very deep. It was the first Final Fantasy game I played. I think it was the entry point for me to move beyond like the Pokemon level of JRPG into like real ones. And it is a story in its original form that is almost perfect. Its environmental message, its questions about like how to fight back against a system that violently oppresses you if violence is not supposed to be the answer.
How fitting.
Yeah, how about that? And I think the remake games, there's been 2 now. The first part was called Remake. The second one that came out in 2024 was Rebirth. They expand on these elements of the story and these questions, and tonally, I think pretty much nail it. I think they go into more depth that I think is. I wonder if is that getting picked up on the camera? So behind the scenes, we're recording at our practice space where we practice with our band, and other bands are practicing down the hall, and we'll see later if we can hear their guitars and cymbals.
If it's there, it'll sound cool in the mix.
Exactly.
It's cool background music. I'm not gonna lie.
It is, yeah. It sounds kind of like sludgy. I like it. Anyway, I think they're doing a great job with the remake trilogy. It's gonna be a trilogy. I hope it's not gonna be a 4th one because I can't wait until 2035 for the last part. It is pretty much everything I wanted, but and I really love big open world JRPGs like Zelda, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I can put 120, 150 hours into those games just exploring things and being like, hey, what's that? Because I have ADHD and like that scratches something for me. So I liked that about Rebirth. but there was just a little too much, like too much to do that wasn't actually worth doing. So most of what but the combat's great, the exploration for the parts that are interesting, and the expansion of the world and seeing it all for the first time in like 3D PS5 graphics, it's amazing. It's a dream come true. As someone who played the original PS1 game where everybody's all blocky. The only thing is the story, where it deviates, it gets a little too much Tetsuya Nomura.
Okay.
How
so?
Do you know who he is?
I do. That's why I'm asking how, so that people can.
Because in the first game, the first remake game, they introduce these things called the Whispers that kind of look like Dementors.
Mm-hmm.
And they fly around and they show up at times in the game that you don't even realize until later are times where the game is trying to deviate from the story of the original.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally plot ghosts.
That's funny.
That try to keep the order of the universe intact.
That's clever.
And so they become the final villain of the game, and you beat them because Sephiroth somehow knows the same thing they know, which is that he's going to lose to the plucky band of misfits.
Yep.
And he kind of tricks you into thinking they're the ones making it so he'll win.
I love when things get too meta.
It is insane. And that's the thing. The potential of it, of fighting against the concept of a remake.
Yeah.
Makes it so interesting. It's a great ending for the first game. It's a little weird that you're fighting Sephiroth so early when, like, he's not supposed to show up until way later.
Right.
And it kind of cheapens his impact by showing up so many times and so early. But you know that he's thinking galaxy brain into this whole like meta thing with the multiverse, I guess, that like you don't know how that's going to turn out. So it's cool to think that, okay, now that we've defeated the plot ghosts and they don't exist anymore, they can't make sure that this happens the way the original happens, which means anything can happen. And then in Rebirth, it basically just happens the way you expect from the original. And I don't know if that makes it a surprise, if it re-surprises you with one of the most famous twists and character losses in video games.
Yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't. I never got that far into Final Fantasy VII.
So it's one of the most famous character deaths ever, and it's a big twist. And it's just something that typically didn't happen in RPGs because you put good equipment on your characters. You don't think that you're going to lose them, you know? So to lose somebody was big back then, but everyone knows that now, except you, I guess. And my girlfriend didn't either. So we played remake and then the original because she was looking at me like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, okay, we're going to play the original so you know what's happening. And then she could appreciate Rebirth and go on the twists with me. But that's the thing. The twists kind of don't happen because it all plays out the same way, but now the ghosts are back, but they're not doing anything. And it's a little mind-numbing because it's like, now we're getting into this multiverse stuff where some people are dead in one universe but not another. And it might all make sense in the end, but it's just getting a little too Kingdom Hearts.
I was going to say, it sounds like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, which is Kingdom Hearts, which is, I hate.
Yeah.
I just flat out hate it.
Because Kingdom Hearts is bad writing.
Yeah.
It's bad writing where you're trying to throw too many things in and think you're smart by overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy because it feels like a blemish on something that I otherwise love because it's bringing to life these characters that have never looked or sounded so good before. Like, I like the Kingdom Hearts versions of like Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and everybody, but like it was a little stilted and awkward. Like the voice cast that they have for this one and the writing of their journeys in this remake series have been perfect. Like, Cloud is not just an emo edgelord that like wants to brood all the time. Like, he is, but you can see his loneliness behind him and the confusion of who he really is and all of that. And they play up the romance with him and Tifa so much, and I love it because aside from Tifa being my ultimate fictional crush ever, like, they made her a good character in a way that was kind of always there, but now you really get to see it. You really get to see how caring she is, how she's always kind of keeping an eye on Cloud, and like how it's rocky for the two of them to connect when she doesn't really know who he is anymore, but cares enough to find out and help him find himself. And Aerith and Barrett are amazing because like Aerith is exactly what I wanted in that she's like just a little bit crass and a little bit spunky, but overall very coy about knowing more than you think she does, and shows her inner conflict of being the last of her race and whatnot. Like, there's a lot of great stuff, but Barrett's the best because he's the one leading this like environmental terrorist group to like fight back against a corporate oppression that directly affected him. And instead of making him just like a caricaturish angry black guy like he was in the original, you see the depth of his humanity, the love of his of his adopted daughter, and what it means to him to raise her, and how much he genuinely cares for everybody else, and him dealing with recognizing that like violence isn't the answer unless you have to defend people, you know. It never answers that question really of whether or not violence is the answer when you were fighting to protect the planet, because it goes into a bigger threat to the planet.
Right.
And that's what makes Final Fantasy VII so amazing. And so being able to re-experience it in a new way and still be intrigued because I'm like, what the fuck are they going to do next? Is it going to be different or not? I don't know. I can accept the stupidity because it's just so beautiful and so fun that I don't know, I could turn my brain off for the parts that I need to and just enjoy it for what it is.
That's awesome. I tried playing Final Fantasy VII when it came out originally on PlayStation 1, and I don't think I had the patience for it as a child. I never tried it again as a teenager or as an adult. I'm not really a turn-based RPG guy. I'm still definitely in like Pokemon RPG mode. I am very tempted to try new Final Fantasy because it becomes more action RPG.
16 is great.
Right. And that's so like that. I think that would be more my speed, but I loved Final Fantasy X.
Oh, yeah.
And that, while not Final Fantasy VII levels, from what I heard, I think it's like very close.
It is one of the most
it's like
beloved ones, yeah.
I was able to get through that turn-based elements of it that I think enough that I would be able to swallow whatever bitter pills I need to in order to play these updated Final Fantasy VII games.
So these are action too.
Oh, they're action.
Yeah,
RPGs?
They're not turn-based.
Oh, then I'm in. Like, yeah, so then I would play them.
So what I would do, watch a recap of the story from the original and then play the new games, because I think it's almost impossible to fully enjoy it without the context of the original. Because I watched Allison play it, and she was like watching like Zach show up at the end when he's not supposed to be there, and she's just looking at me like, what is going on?
How long is the original one?
The original game is only like 35, 40 hours.
Okay.
Just part 1 is 35 to 40 hours, and that's where you're still in Midgar. Right. So like these games are long.
Okay.
That's the only thing.
I can sit through 35, 40 hours of an action RPG pretty easily. I want to see if I have the patience to do the original Final Fantasy VII as an adult. Because again, I've never really tried that as an adult.
It does move a lot faster. I think the first remake part got padded out a little bit too much, but I didn't mind. The second one I think moves along a little bit better, but there is still some padding too. It just kind of cuts off in a weird place. It's like, okay, so they have a lot of ground to cover in the third one. So I'm hoping that one's going to be a little quicker.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So the opposite of Kingdom Hearts bad writing
Mm-hmm.
is good writing in One Piece, which is
Yes.
my number 3.
Which is also complicated and long, but good.
I don't think I'm up to where it's complicated and long yet. So
Okay.
in my ability to stop at places where I'm like, all right, I need to take a break from this. I'm going too fast.
Mhm.
I need to enjoy it. I stopped at the end of East Blue. So
Oh.
right. I know. I'm only on chapter 100 of 1100.
Yeah.
I put off One Piece for the longest time because I frankly thought it was pretty gimmicky that there was a manga or just a story running so long. It felt like Oda, right? That's the author, yeah. It felt like Oda was playing a joke on everyone, kind of just like just forcing his audience to keep going, and that for the longest time, maybe this is like unfounded. Well, I guess it is unfounded because it's like my top 3 of 2024. I just was like, this is stupid that a story is this long for this many years and people still don't know where it's going. Probably because he doesn't know where it's going. But I have a lot of friends from a previous job that are really into anime and really into manga, and they're talking about it all the time. They're trying to get me into JJK, which I'm trying to. And I also tried this year. Notably, it's absent from the list. But I read East Blue in like 2 or 3 weeks, which is 100-something chapters. And I probably could have, if I stayed with it from where I was reading it in the summer, probably could have caught up to now in the manga, of whatever saga they're in the middle. Is it just called Final Saga now? Or,
I don't know.
I don't know the name of it. But
I'm also not caught up. I left off at like Alabasta, the end of that. So I've got like
you're not much ahead of me then.
Yeah.
Arabasta is the second one. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Alabasta is a long arc, but it's not one of the longest. So I'm like maybe I don't know what it is in manga terms, but I was like 150 something episodes in.
They're almost about the same. So that's what I'm gonna pick up soon, is this next saga, and I'm gonna give that a read because I know I'm gonna run through it really, really fast. I was very, very surprised by how heartfelt it is of a story, and when I was telling that to my friends, they were like, "That's actually what all of One Piece is. It holds up that heartfelt, genuine feeling throughout the whole story that." I'm wrong. Like he's doing it for forever, but he's not. It's not like there might be fan service moments, but it's not him just recycling the same thing. Apparently,
yeah. It's not fairy tale,
right? Which is what I was kind of expecting by it being so long. I hope he sticks the landing. I don't know if he will, just because I don't know how easy that'll be, given the length of the story.
You know, it's funny. I never considered whether or not the ending would be good.
Yeah.
But that's a big ask because, I mean, clearly he's built up expectations and people have seen it pay off over all these years. But is it going to end satisfyingly?
Which was the problem with JJK. People really, eventually JJK found its footing and people really liked Jujutsu Kaisen. And have you watched or read it?
I watched the first season. I don't know why I never felt compelled to watch the second.
Okay. I'm up to the Shibuya incident.
God, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I think I watched that like the year it came out.
No, that's fair. Things are starting to get dark. It's going from shonen to seinen where I'm at in the manga.
Okay.
And I've been waiting for it to get there for a while because it felt like it was spinning its wheels for a bit. And all my friends were like, "Gets a Shibuya incident." That's where it's like it becomes the Jujutsu Kaisen that everyone knows and loves.
Wait, is that? I'm trying to remember. Is that where the thing happens with the kid that Yuji becomes friends with, or he's like possessed or something?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know what that's a reference to. Yeah. But regardless, JJK does not stick the landing. Like, notably, everyone on Twitter was upset at the ending of it. So
wait, it's over?
It's over. I think it ended
I didn't
in
know the
October.
manga was over. Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
think the anime isn't, the manga is.
Right.
But that's what I think about when I think of One Piece, is that you're asking for such an investment
Mm-hmm.
that are you worth my attention? Not to say like I'm like king whatever, but just like that's a lot to ask people of when
You
there's
only
so
have
much.
one life, so
Right,
are you
there's
gonna?
so much.
I mean, look at all the other shit that we're engaging with all the time. Like,
Right.
is it worth it? Yeah.
And One Piece 100% is.
Mm-hmm.
Like that story with Nami, when I got her backstory, I was
Oh, Arlong Park.
yeah.
Yeah.
When Luffy slams Arlong through the building and he literally brings the house down
Mm-hmm.
on Arlong, not because Arlong is like an awful person, but because Nami's his friend.
Yes.
Like now I just want to read more One Piece. Like I'm sitting here tearing up because like that hits so hard.
Mm-hmm. You really are.
Yeah, I'm really.
I can see the
I'm
tears.
really
Oh my
tearing up.
God.
Yeah, because it hits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I hear, there's because my friend Sean is all caught up and he's like obsessed, and he sat me down to show me like all the way up through Alabasta, and
Yeah.
that was years ago, and I still have to pick it back up. He said you will not believe where this goes.
Right. So that's like, I got to read Alabasta now. But yeah, that like I would not be surprised if in 2025, like I choose another saga.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be my top 10. And like, it might be Alabasta. It might be one later. It might be multiple of them because he knows what he's doing and he's taking the care to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm not sure he totally knows what he's doing. I think he knew what he was doing at one point. Now I think he's trying to find his footing. And as he gets older and nears retirement.
So he's Luffy.
Yeah, I think so.
You know?
Yeah. Which is nice, but it's also at some point we have to land the plane.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have a Stephen King thing where it's like you write a really, really great journey and we get to the end, and not that it undermines the journey because I'm enjoying it. It's just I want it to be a complete thing that I can say, oh, I love this from start to finish because it's so good in the middle.
What Stephen King thing are you referencing?
Oh, Stephen King is very much known for not sticking the landing in his novels. Like he has a great premise, has a great beginning, hooks you immediately, the whole book, flipping pages, and then you ever read It?
No, and I only saw the first of the two movies when they remade
It wouldn't even be in the movies. You get to the end of It. Are you ever going to read it?
Probably not.
No. At the end of It, the major after they defeat Pennywise, the way that the losers rekindle their friendship.
Oh, I know about. Wait, they don't do it again. Not the sewer thing again.
What do you mean the sewer thing again?
Don't they, after they beat Pennywise the first time when they're kids?
Yes.
They have the orgy in the sewer because they think that that'll make them adults, so
Yes.
Pennywise won't come after them again because they're not kids anymore.
It's not necessarily that Pennywise won't come after them. It's that they feel like broken and listless and lost from each other because it was really hard. Like what they went through was traumatizing.
Yeah.
It was like facing their fears and whatnot. And so Beverly thinks that the way that they get back together as the losers, as friends, is by doing it. And it's a big pun on the title of It. And so reading it in context, it worked for me. It's truly like a coming of age moment. There could have been so many other ways that he could have done that and like gotten the same point across than having an orgy scene of like 12, 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I mean by like a lot of Stephen King stuff is like good ideas, really, really holding through. Then you get to the end and you're like, oh. Now when I think of it, I don't think of all like the interesting interstitials about Derry. It's like tainted by this scene that, again, it did personally work for me because I do get what he was going for. But if I really wish he had an editor who was like, Steve, you could do better. And if you want to keep that scene, you have to fix it by the way he wrote it. It was just too coked up, and it was like it was ever so slightly not graphic, that's not the word, but in the way that Don is wholesomely pushing the envelope, this was not wholesome.
Okay.
This was pretty mature. And I don't think we needed the maturity for that scene. I think it could have been achieved in other manners. Even if you wanted to execute it the same way that Stephen King did, I think the writing was poor execution for what the idea he was going for was. But that's what cocaine and alcohol do to you in the 1980s.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow, we started with bad writing in Kingdom Hearts, went to good writing with One Piece, and then we went back to bad writing.
Back just insane writing.
Right, yeah, just insane writing. What's your number 2?
Metaphor Refantasio. It's the last video game on my list. You know how I said I like Persona?
I do.
Metaphor is Persona high fantasy.
Oh, that's cool. That's a fun setting.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of does it a disservice because it is more than that. But it takes a lot of element. It's made by Atlas, so it's made by the team that did the Persona games, like the recent ones, and it takes a lot of elements from Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, which Persona is a spinoff of. In its combat and its ideas of the combat's more SMT, but the gameplay being like calendar based, where you do different things during different times of day, like each day, to build up relationships that can later affect your combat and bonuses and stuff. That's all Persona. The difference is, instead of having like social links in Persona where they're like friends you make as a high school student, either like girls you want to date, or your boss at your job, your like part-time job or something. It's you trying to become king of a country, of a fantasy country that is in turmoil because their king was assassinated by this insane disgraced general that has kind of become a fringe political figure who's like led his own movement, and he's rich, so like he's kind of like an insurrectionist, and the whole thing is about killing that guy so you can restore the rightful prince to the throne. And so you run, but nobody can know that the prince is alive yet, so you're running in this like popularity contest for king, this tournament for the crown, they call it, in his stead. And there's a lot of twists in it, so I won't get too deep into it. But the whole thing of, instead of it being social links of like normal people you meet in your day-to-day at school or work or whatever, these are followers that you are getting to support your campaign for the throne.
That's fun.
And it does the same thing of get to a certain level of trust with that follower, and now like you unlock a new archetype of they're called archetypes. They work like personas in that you can mix and match what your persona is, what different type of combat you can have. So like basically the main one is the Seeker. He's like a sword guy that can do wind and some healing. Then you become friends with Leon Stroll, and he's the, I think, sword master archetype. So now that's his main one, but you can now have the main guy learn that archetype and develop its skills and whatnot. And then once you get skills, you can also like add like a couple skills here and there to other archetypes. So you can like pick who from your party is which of these like 20 or 30 archetypes and what extra skills they have. So you can build out your own party configuration, and it's all in place of personas. And it's all based around this weird meta thing where you don't know if this story is a story within a story, because it delves into these deep concepts about the nature of fantasy, of what is the use of fantasy in a world that is harsh and unrelenting. Like what is the use of dreaming up a world that could be better when it seems unachievable? And I can't really go into more of it from there, because if you have even a passing interest in Persona, I recommend it. But especially as a lover of literature and fantasy, like I think you would really like this. And it is turn-based, unfortunately, but it's cool because the way the turn-based fighting works is, so, yeah, it like it works like Shin Megami Tensei, where if you hit an enemy's weakness, you get an extra turn. So you have like 4 turn icons at first, and then if you hit a weakness or something, you get an extra one. It'll like flash, and you can wipe out the enemy without them even touching you if you know how to set up the strategy. So it's engaging gameplay wise. It's an engaging story. The music is incredible as always, but instead of it being like, okay, which modern genre music are they going to do? They're like, what if we did this like cool fantasy like choral music where it's all chanting in Esperanto.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And like, you've probably seen the memes of like this. There's this great animation of like a battle going on where you're fighting like a big ox monster or something, and then the song starts playing and your whole party is dancing as a monk is just laying it down on the mic and chanting it. And it really does. It goes hard.
That's awesome.
Just a fully, like, this got nominated for a lot of awards for Game of the Year, or for the Game Awards this year, and it totally deserved it. So I was very happy to see that and Astrobot win things, and I think Rebirth won something too. So I was pretty happy with the Game Awards this year, and I was very surprised by Metaphor. I was like, oh god, do I have time to get into another Persona game? Yeah, it was worth it.
I think those are my big problems with these big turn-based RPGs. It's not something I felt as a kid, but what I feel now is like I'm open to trying it, but I know it's going to be such a time suck for me.
Yeah.
Which is hard. Like dog dad to dog dad, it's hard.
Oh yeah.
That's hard. Just our jobs get in the way, life gets in the way, other commitments, bands, everything that we want to accomplish. You're selling it to me. Not that you didn't sell Persona to me well, because I did like Persona when I tried it. It was just the time.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like, it was hard for me. But now hearing this like meta element to it, the fantasy and literary element to it, like it is. It sounds like even with that turn-based element there, I can get through it more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get through the story, you know.
I will say this. I don't know how other SMT fans feel about this, but to me, especially with Persona and Metaphor, it is paramount that you use a guide.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think, not because it's hard, but because you can follow a guide that will tell you exactly how to maximize your time. So that
Gotcha, yeah.
based on everybody else's schedules and when certain things are available, that you are going to the right people or doing the right side quests or whatever on the right days, so that you can max everything out and get all the best stats going into the end of it.
Yeah, that would be helpful for me, because it's not that I don't want to find my way through a game, because I do enjoy that exploration element to it. But it would definitely frustrate me if I went to someone, they were like, you have to wait a day and now I have to push the clock. Like, I wish I just would have known to push the clock first.
Yeah.
Things like that. So I appreciate that. I would check that out with a guide then. Cool. My number 2 is a callback to one of your honorable mentions.
Oh yes, let's get into it.
It's Godzilla -1.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch the black and white version. I should watch that.
Oh, I want to too.
Yeah, I think that should be a movie night. That should be
yes.
general.
Because, yeah, let's do that.
My partner hasn't seen it yet, and I think she would love it.
Same.
So then we should just do that with black and white. But what got me for this movie, you mentioned it earlier, was that it's a very human story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what makes it such a relevant story nowadays, because it calls back to the original, like you were saying. What kept me going through it was there was we don't have to like go too crazy on it, because like I could talk endlessly about this movie. We should just watch black and white and do an episode on Godzilla -1 for it then. But there were 2 standout moments in this film that really, really took me for a ride. Not necessarily because they were twists, even though like they're intended as such. But the way they were executed was just so well done. that it's like I can imagine myself being a kid and watching this for the first time and learning the language of movies.
Yeah.
And so the two ones, like I guess spoilers ahead for Godzilla -1.
Okay.
But the two major ones for me were when the main character's wife gets blown away earlier in the movie when Godzilla comes through, and she disappears in the destruction of it, right? And so when that occurs, not you feel the suspense because he's chasing her to go save her, and he's about to get her, and he's so close, and he doesn't do it, and it just crushes you because watching it, I imagine there were two versions of me watching it. One was the kid me where I was like, oh my God, she was so important to him after everything he went through as a failed kamikaze pilot.
Yep.
And she's gone now. And he just learned how important she is to him. And she's dead. And then there was adult me where I was like, but she didn't see a body.
Yep.
And that's where I enjoyed it on this double level where I was like, wow. Like, kid me was like, like, I'm crushed. Adult me was like...
And they do show don't tell by having, like, the picture up of her and the aftermath of it for them.
Yes.
So they never have to say, yes, she's dead. We don't have to see her dead body to know that they at least think she's dead.
They think she's dead.
So that's enough for us.
Right. They give us the language that she's dead. But us being movie people, us being story people, us knowing, like, these, like, specific rules that are very hard to break, they didn't give a body.
Yep.
And that's like a hard and fast rule in fiction. If you don't see a body, you cannot 100% say that you're dead.
Yes.
And so me sitting there, like, with my storytelling brain, I was like holding out hope. And they come back to it later on. And so I'll come back to that in a second. But the other moment in the movie that really got me was when his engineer friend was putting together the plane for him for his one last ride.
Yep.
And when he's putting it together...
Oh, I know what you're going to... Yep.
He's putting it together, and he goes and visits him. And not only do they have such a great relationship because the engineer high-key hates him.
Yes.
Because he's a coward in the eyes of the military or the Air Force or whatever the name is. And I understand it, and it's moving. Like, it's genuine, their animosity. And the protagonist gets the hate. He understands it. And that's why he goes to him and uses it and weaponizes it and says, let me do right what I didn't do right before.
Yeah.
Which is moving in and of itself. When you see him, again, I'm tearing up now doing this because it's such a good moment. When you see the engineer, just for that second, focus, the camera shifts so slightly. And it just focuses on a lever, or like he pats the chair, or there's a button that he looks at and he says, you will not be able to eject from your seat.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he knows this is a suicide mission. And our protagonist goes, yeah, I know. Accepts it full-heartedly. And then he just pats it. And in my head, in that moment of, like, that one little slight thing, I was like...
And, don't they, like, cut out so you can see that they're still talking, but there's no sound?
There's no sound.
Which is
a great choice.
Trick. Yep.
Right. And it's like, you're sitting there and you're just like, why did the director choose to do that at that moment? So in my head, I'm like...
There's something more.
There's something more. It's the story's not over yet. There's always a little bit more. And again, like, kid me would have sat there and been like, that's a cool shot. And later on would have been surprised when, he survives. Like, he makes it through, right? But that scene, like, kills me. Especially, this was a line, like, for to be real heads of the LVP someday. We have a running list of song titles. And so I wrote down a song title out of this scene where he's trying to convince him, or I forget who said it, the protagonist or the engineer. But he says, my war is not over yet. And I was like,
yes,
that is a line. That is a song title. And it was just like, it makes me want to go and fight Godzilla and save Japan. Right. Like, but just so that two for a moment where he's saved at the last second, bawling like a baby because you're just rooting. Like, you're happy because he gets his character arc and he gets to live.
Yep.
Right. So, like, truly, like, you get your fist pump moment.
And then so does she.
And then, like, 10 minutes later, I'm sitting there bawling again because he gets her.
Yep.
So it is the most I think, earned Happily Ever After I have ever seen.
Yep.
Because it feels realistic. It feels earned. There's growth.
With just the slightest bit cutting it under in that, like you said about Show Me the Body.
Yes.
We see Godzilla's body.
Yes.
It's growing back a little bit.
Yep. Because he's got to come back.
He's got to come back.
Come on, this is a Godzilla movie. And that's why I think the director kills it. The writers kill it. They know what Godzilla is. They know what makes him work. And they also know what makes a bombastic blockbuster.
If you ever watch Shin Godzilla, pay particular attention to the final shot. Okay. I won't say why, but there's something similar, but it's not as clear.
Okay.
That's all I'll say. But
I know I'm gonna enjoy it. I know these are.
It is good, but -1 is better.
Right, and I know that these are both like quote unquote like elevated takes on Godzilla.
Yes,
which is I appreciate what them, especially with the American remakes being like truly like just empty shells, you know.
Yeah.
Even though I did have fun with that Gareth Edwards one, and I liked Skull Island. I thought that was a fun
Skull Island's good, and Godzilla versus Kong was fun for what it was.
I couldn't sit through that.
I had some friends around, so we were just kind of like laughing at it, but like I wasn't gonna watch the second one, like the New Empire or whatever. It's
too much.
Yeah.
They gotta know when to let it go. But yeah, Godzilla -1 is there. And again, when we watch Black and White, maybe it'll be there next year. Because we're watching it in 2025 now.
That's true.
What's your number one?
My number one is the only song on the list, because I had an albums section, but this is the only song. And it's just the song that I played the most outside of trying to get our own streaming numbers up. It is Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan. What do you consider to be a perfect song?
I don't think there's necessarily any structure that's perfect or any melody that's perfect. I think it just hits. It hits at the right moment, hits the right way, it scratches the itch, and yeah.
That's how I would describe Good Luck Babe.
Yeah. Because
I love Midwest Princess. I think there's a lot of great songs on it. Not all of them, but most. But Good Luck Babe is the only one, and it's not on that record. It's the only one that I think is actually perfect. Every single choice builds to a greater whole. Every single choice feels like the right choice, the natural choice. It is its own thing that conveys a message and a feeling through beautiful music and melody, and tells a great story. It's nothing groundbreaking. It is in a representation way. You don't see a lot of mainstream stuff telling an explicitly queer story. Maybe we are seeing more of it now, but it's because of boundary pushers like Chappell. And it's a song that's so tied to its artist that any cover of it feels hollow. And that, I think, is also a mark of a perfect song, that it is such a direct expression of an artist. Because if I were to sing that song and I kept the lyrics exactly the same, it could work, because I'm a straight guy singing about a woman. So there's nothing you'd have to change to make it work. But the story doesn't mean the same thing at all.
Yeah.
If you're just like a guy who's like, jealous and sad that she didn't pick it, like, that doesn't hit the same.
You've heard
as,
the story before.
Right. It doesn't hit the same as a girl that's like in love with someone that will never fully accept her because she'll never accept herself.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's interesting.
Yeah.
And even if I were to swap it to make it a gay story, like it's, I say, you could kiss 100 girls in bars, and like turn it into just a gender swap version of the same thing. It's still not my experience, and I couldn't really see a gay man who relates to it, conveying it with the same depth as the person who actually went through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not impossible, but I think it's just a perfect song on its own, and it makes me tear up when I listen to it. Just when she sings, I Told You So, like just when she holds the note over the last chorus, I told you so. Like I can't do it obviously, but like the way she belts it, you just feel it. Like it's even it wouldn't matter what the words were there. Like I would feel that. There are other songs that have made me like cry just on a melody, or the message of it coming together. Could be something sad like "You're Depressed" by The Hotelier. That song makes me cry almost every time I hear it. But then "Juice" by Lizzo, or "September" by Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yep.
Those are perfect songs because they just make every right choice and they put everything together. Born to Run, Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Like I could think of examples like that where you just hear it and you think there's not only is this perfect because there's nothing wrong with it, it's perfect because it is, you know? It could have flaws and still feel perfect because it's a lightning in a bottle kind of song. And I just look at it just jealous that there's people out there that can make music that fucking good.
Yeah.
And easily my most played song of the year. Kind of it was the song that got me into Chapel Roan because I had heard Red Wine Supernova and I was like, okay, this is fun. I get it. This like cute like country twang lesbian pop song. It's fine. Hot to Go, I thought was kind of annoying at first because of the cheerleader thing.
I still think it's annoying.
And I get it.
Yeah.
It grew on me. But I also felt the same way about Chocolate by the 1975. I thought that song was horrible.
That song still annoys me.
But once I heard Sex and She's American and If I Believe You, once I heard more, it made me go back to Chocolate and actually learn to like it. Chapel, that was the same thing. I was like, once Good Luck Babe hit, I was like, it was one of those few moments I don't get as much anymore where I was like out somewhere and I heard it. It was like at a coffee shop. I heard it and I said, who is this? And Allison knew and she was like, this is Chapel Roan. I was like, fuck. Like,
that's awesome.
I think I've got a new addiction.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Look at us getting into aesthetics philosophy about perfect with flaws and whatnot. Yeah.
It's how I feel about Sing Street, my favorite movie. It's
oh, that's perfect.
It's a perfect movie.
Yeah, it's a perfect movie. I would even like structurally, I think that's a perfect movie.
It's an airtight script.
Yeah, like that's a good movie. My partner loves Chapel Roan, and she replayed Hot to Go so much that it gets stuck in my head often, which I think is the mark of a great song. But me, in my brain rot way, I started thinking in my head, Hot to Go, as though it were a Star Wars character.
Like Glup Shitto.
Exactly like that. And there's going to be a crossover at some point where Disney is like hurting for a Star Wars thing, and Chapel Roan's going to show up, and she's going to be like, "How to go?" Like it's going to happen.
Okay, I hope not, because she has taken a stand against that kind of like corporatism.
Oh, good. That's good. Okay.
Like, because she turned down like an H&M deal and some like movie roles and stuff because she's like I'm not.
Good for her.
That. Yeah.
Okay. Then I truly hope she doesn't sell out. And even if she did,
might,
I would laugh at it because it's like, I don't know. It just feels like it's right there.
I will say Hot to Go is the perfect song to listen to first thing in the morning when you're trying to go to work.
I disagree, having experienced that.
Oh, sorry. Well, because I have woken up and been like, I need to fucking wake up. Headphones, and then I put it on 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm just coming out of bed dancing. Like,
that's good.
All right.
We have different morning routines. Okay.
What is your number one pick, Joseph?
My number one, and this is, I didn't pick this as number one because of the challenging name for me as an American. I chose the novel, The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu. And I read the novel very early in 2024. in order to watch this show with my partner, which we both really enjoyed. And it's by the creators of Game of Thrones. Did you watch the show?
No, because Game of Thrones.
Okay. So I think it's safer than Game of Thrones due to the book series being complete.
Okay.
So I right, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it allays any concerns of not sticking a landing because the author has already written the story, so they don't have to make anything up.
Okay, cool.
And the way that they adapted the first book, now having read the novel and watched the first season, they're putting their own twist on it. That whether or not I disagree, whatever the case might be, there's parts apparently of the third book which I haven't read yet. There's parts of the second book that are in the first season of Three Body Problem.
Okay.
But it works. Like it's fine. I started reading book 2 very recently, The Dark Forest, and even though I know what happens due to watching the TV show, it's not spoiling anything for me because they do their own thing in the show, which I appreciate. And it's a fine adaptation. Like I'm not there to judge it on that. But what stood out to me about the novel is just how vast it becomes, because it starts so personally as this whole culture thing about the Cultural Revolution in China in the mid-20th century. And it starts so personally. And the show starts the same way, and it's very powerful. So like that I would consider more spoilers than other things to come, just because you're immediately emotionally hooked in this person's quest for something, if mostly revenge. And the choices they make lead to what might be the end of the world. And it's because they're mad at the Chinese government. Because the Chinese government ultimately killed their father due to not wanting him to spread science lies, which is just him being a scientist, and they, as China, did not want that information out among the public. And so that happens. The protagonist of the book goes on and somehow ends up being able to contact aliens.
Okay.
Right, exactly. Like this is what I'm saying. Like it's hard science fiction, but it's very accessible because it has a very bleeding, beating heart. And that the protagonist contacts aliens, and through however it occurs, the aliens contact back, and somehow the protagonist learns and hears from like the one nice alien there that says, "Do not contact us again. We will come."
Okay.
Because you learn about why they're not in great shape, the aliens. And so her, being hurt, goes, "No, I will contact again." And it just trickles down into this awful storyline, which is incredible. Like you're just hooked to read. And you just want to keep going, but it's a very hard sci-fi conflict that starts from such an emotional core, which really, really hits for me. One of the major reasons this still sits in my head is because of a moment, like maybe 3/4 through the novel. It's the first time the aliens make public contact with the Earth, and the Earthlings, or the humans rather, the humans are in awe because they don't understand the message, but you, the reader, understand the message due to callbacks from previous, that everything just makes sense for you. So there's a lot of great dramatic irony there.
Yeah.
But it's just a threatening moment. Like you can imagine being a person seeing this message and going, "Oh my God, what does that mean? That's terrifying. How does that show up?" And you, the reader, going, "Oh my God, the planet is doomed." And like if you've read it, you're gonna understand what it is. You not having read it, you won't understand it. It's just it's a cool thing. This is another song title that I've stolen.
Okay.
There's just a moment where the aliens communicate, "You're bugs," and all of humanity is like, "We're bugs."
Oh shit.
And us as humans, we step on bugs. Like that's like an immediate thought, right? The callback to early in the novel with this imagery of bugs and stepping on bugs and bug life and whatnot, and all these intricate things. It just works very, very well. You read that and you just have like this gut punch moment where you go, "Oh, I can't stop the ball rolling now," and you can't. And I appreciate that the author doubles down. because you can't stop it.
Yeah.
So we're going to follow through. What's going to happen? The aliens are coming. How does it play out? And that's book 2 where I'm at right now, where Earth is trying to fight back in whatever ways they're trying to fight back. Interesting ways. It becomes much more heavy sci-fi in the second book. It's less emotional, I think, at the moment. I think he's going to try to like bring it back to that emotional core. But I think as long as I live, I will never forget the moment I turn the page and I see your bugs and I go, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you feel so small.
Yeah.
And you feel so helpless and you feel just like you feel everything that the humans feel, but you're safe because you're on your couch reading it.
Mm-hmm.
But actually you're like, oh God, like you're having like a mini existential crisis.
Yeah.
Right. And from what I've read on the sci-fi subreddit and fantasy subreddits and all that stuff, apparently the third one goes like real existential. I think the books zoom out as you continue. So the first one is like 20th, early 21st century, and then it starts going further into the future to match with the traveling of the aliens as they come here. And by the third book, I think you're so zoomed out that like book 1 does not matter.
Wow.
Like it's like dust. And so when I get to that level, I think I need to have like comics on hand to read in between chapters. I think I need to watch a Disney movie. Like I think when I get there, I need to be in a very positive mental space.
Yes.
Because I know it's going to hit existentially, but I know it's going to be so good that it's worth that hit, that the author knows what they're doing. We're going to get a great message and it's just going to be a good story. And I wonder how they're going to adapt it whenever they get there. But yeah, highly recommend that. Both watching and reading.
Is the title a spoiler?
The title is not a spoiler. No.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you what it is?
Yeah, what is
it?
it?
Yeah, the 3-body problem is a I'm not going to name the right scientist because I forget who it is. It is a problem where there is I'm explaining it poorly. You could look it up and it'll explain it better. But the ultimate problem is that when there are 3 bodies moving, so let's say planets.
Yeah.
When 3 planets are moving and they each have a fixed orbit, it is incredibly challenging, and as we learn in the novel, almost impossible
for them not to collide.
No, not to collide, but for them not to be chaotic.
Okay.
And so being chaotic means you cannot predict what is going to happen. As in, so like in the context of planets, let's say there's 3 planets revolving around the same sun on these fixed orbits, but they're very close together. You don't know which season they're going to be in when and what catastrophe might occur. Collision is part of it. That could happen. Not necessarily, but they could all burn up because they get too close to the sun at the wrong moment. So you're in the wrong spot, or the moon comes in too close and the oceans overwhelm everything, and there it goes. So you go between these 2 periods. I forget the first one. It's essentially like a calm period, and then you go through the chaos period, which is when there's rains and lightning and fire, and you can't survive. And so the 3-body problem is called that because the aliens are on one of those planets, and they are dealing with chaos.
Okay.
And they want to preserve their society, which I guess these are minor spoilers, but like nothing. It doesn't give you anything like too major. It gives more context.
So it
than
gives
anything.
them a reason to come to Earth.
There's a reason why they want to come to Earth, because Earth is Goldilocks.
Got it.
Yeah. And so that's what sets up the major conflict. Yeah. Great book, great story, great show. Second book's great. Everything's great. Yep. You got any final thoughts for our first couple episodes?
No.
That was great. I think we had a great, rousing conversation. We're both very tired now.
Yeah.
'Cause it's late.
How long have we been doing this?
We've been talking for over 3 hours at this point.
Wow.
If this comes out as a full episode, thank you for listening to 3 hours of talking. If it comes out as 2 episodes, thanks for listening to 3 hours of talking in 2 separate episodes. I hope you find something that you want to go watch, read, listen to, engage with. We will get good about you reaching out to us to engage with us because we love talking about these things with people.
Clearly.
We even love it when we disagree. So don't be afraid to disagree because it just leads to good
Yeah,
conversations.
stay tuned for our upcoming Bruce Springsteen episode.
Which will
That's gonna
never
be-
happen. No, it'll happen because it'll do numbers.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
we'll
get dragged.
we'll do that. We'll do the Blink-182 one, and we'll kind of reverse roles there.
Oh, that'll be good. Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
be good. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.